No worries. All right. In that case, let me go ahead and hit that record button, and then I will pass it over to Christy.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. All right, we will start our enforcement and inspections meeting, and I will turn it over to our chair, who is Danielle Munoz.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I hope everyone's been safe and dry with this weather here in California. I want to start today with our roll call. So, Natalie, if you could do the roll call for us, please.
Of course. Danielle Munoz.
Here.
Tanya Fairley. Tanya Fairley.
Can you hear me here?
Yes.
Thank you. Jacob Rostovsky.
Present.
Steve Weeks.
Present.
Kelly Funk.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is our first committee meeting of the year, so we're going to re-elect a committee chair. So at this time, I will take any nominations for the committee chair for this Enforcement and Inspections Committee.
Are you open for re-election? Because if so, I renominate you.
Yes, I'd be open.
Okay, I nominate Danielle.
I second.
I accept the nomination.
Thank you, Danielle.
Sure. So do I have a motion? Or anyone else? Anyone else for the nomination? Okay, do I have a motion?
I think Tanya framed it as a motion. I think
Okay.
it can be accepted.
Okay, sounds great. And then I heard a second. So we can open up for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And seeing no requests for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we are going to have Natalie do the roll call then. This happened really fast.
Danielle Munoz.
Yes.
Tanya Fairley.
Yes.
Kelly Funk.
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky.
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Absolutely.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate that, your confidence. So we're going to continue on to our next agenda item. So this is the approval for our January 9 minutes. Do any members have comments on the minutes? And if not, we can go for a motion.
I'd like to make a comment, just that I was not able to attend the last committee meeting, so I read all through the minutes, and it looks like some really important business was discussed, and I think it all sounds wonderful, including the follow-ups to continue some of those discussions. So yeah, thank you for the detailed minutes, and I move to approve them.
Thank you.
I think Christy's taking responsibility for actually doing the minutes, right, Christy?
Yes, all the minutes.
Great work, Christy.
Christy's phenomenal. Can we get a second on this motion?
I second.
A second. All right. Thank you. So now we're going to open it up for public comment on the meeting minutes.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And it looks like there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, that's fine. Okay, Natalie, let's do the roll call for this.
Of course. Daniel Munoz,
Yes, I approve.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
I think I have to abstain, but thank you.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to the next agenda item. This is the review and discussion of our current inspection process for suite owners. So I'd like to turn it over to our executive officer, Christy, for a report.
All right. So this is a topic that came up in our last meeting, and we wanted to provide some informational items to give the committee something to discuss. We wanted to let you know how we handle the salon suite situation. So for those of you who don't know, salon suites are super popular all over the country. And it's when a very large, what kind of looks like an office building, is basically a lot of salons inside those buildings. And so they're suites. There's a lot of major companies that do this type of business plan. And what it is, an individual licensee can basically rent a suite. Some suites are big, some suites are just the size for one person. And then they each get their own establishment license. So to us, it's a building with, it could be 15 or more salons inside of this one building. So we wanted to kind of talk about our inspection process. And this changed quite a bit with the COVID pandemic, as did most everything in our lives. Usually salon suites are open. It's not traditional walk-in type of a service where you will see a salon and walk-ins are welcome. Even some salons that are by appointment only, if they have an opening, they'll certainly take someone. But for the most part, people aren't just walking into salon suites because you wouldn't know really where to go. So they have a main entrance when you walk in, and usually they have a directory listed. So you find the suite number of your particular licensee that you're going to see. Well, in COVID, what happened was they started locking that front door. And we weren't able to get in and do inspections. And so that's kind of the topic that came up, is how are we handling these types of inspections? And to be honest, we actually handle them quite well. After the pandemic ended and salons reopened, most of these types of businesses have kept their front doors locked. And rightfully so, they've done that for security reasons. Even though it could be a big office type building, there might be, 2 people working in 2 different suites for that day. And so anybody could walk in. It can pose a security risk to some of those licensees that are working in there. So for the most part, we found that those front doors are still locked. And if you have most clients will just call their licensee and say, I'm here, and they come and let them in. Our inspectors have been faced with not being able to get into some of the suites. And what they do is they will usually wait until somebody will let them in. And usually somebody always does. Most of those salon suites are pretty well run businesses. Rather they like having, and I'm so sorry, my phone's ringing right now online. So let me fix that. Thank you. So we haven't had too many issues with someone not letting us in. So that's been the good news of all of it. We don't really see any concerns with it. We have had situations where we've had to call a licensee to be let in, and they have let us in. So it's been going okay. It definitely added a new wrinkle to our process, because sometimes an inspector, if we had happened to have it directed where the inspector needs to get in and inspect one of those suites, there's often times where they might be waiting for a little longer than what they would have normally to get into the building. But for the most part, it works out. We understand the security concern. And so we're trying to just work around that. And so far, the licensees that we have dealt with have all been appreciative of that process and have let us in to do the inspection. So that's kind of our review. It was, as I mentioned, it came up in the last meeting. So we just wanted to give this committee that information on how we currently are handling those suites.
I have a question.
Yes.
Last comment. Is it possible that inspections could be previously notified that they're coming? And I know this is completely different from the way it has been. It's always a surprise inspection. But in the efforts to eliminate confusion, first of all, with being able to get into these establishments, but to maybe give that licensee a chance to straighten up their act, and if they know what to do, then it gives them that chance to do it and get their stuff in order. If they really don't and they're an egregious offender, it'll be disgusting whether they get a warning or not. You know what I mean? Whatever their offense is. So just an idea that, is it possible that inspections could be a letter a week ahead, like we're going to be there this day at this time. And like I said, it would maybe give them a chance to do the right thing and clean up these acts, and maybe small little things that they would have got dinged for. They can fix that up, things that weren't stored correctly or anything. I just was wondering if that's an idea that could be accepted by the board.
I don't see how it could ever be humanly possible for us to do that, to be quite honest. And that's because we have 55,000 salons and about 15 inspectors. So they are just out there doing what they can. And we don't have a system in place where we don't plan the work for the inspectors, and the inspectors decide. Sometimes they try to decide in a day. So if I'm an inspector and I have a complaint that took place at a salon in downtown Sacramento, that's going to be, I know I'm going to go there today because I need to get to this one because there was a consumer complaint. And what I'm going to do is I can look up by address all the salons that are around there. So those are who I'm going to try to inspect in that day. So it's a day's notice that even our inspectors have, because we don't have any type of technology that would plan for us. We're trying to look at something like that in the future, but that's a ways off. However, that being said, there are salons out there that lock their doors, as you know, Kelly, and many salons are have their doors locked because sometimes it's a security risk. And so we call and make appointments for those. Like, we let the inspectors know, and the inspectors have that option if they go and they see that some salons are appointment only. Quite a few, especially after COVID, when not everybody has really gone back to work in a salon setting. A lot of salons are appointment only, and so we know that. So the inspectors will call on those and make an appointment for those inspections.
I love that, because I would love to see the inspection process be more of a check-in appointment between the government and the licensee, that we want to make sure that they're doing things appropriately, but not so much bust them. Like I said, if somebody is operating under standards, then that's going to be obvious no matter what time or day we're there. But just to give them more of like, hey, let's meet up. Let's make sure that everything's on the up and up. We're coming by next week. It would, I think, eliminate some smaller citations. And I just think it would be a nice, helpful gesture towards licensees that would be more collaborative moving forward. I personally want to offer collaboration to inspectors and help understand what the state's looking for if they don't understand verbiage and things like that. So just more of a collaborative effort between the licensees and the state instead of like a "I gotcha" kind of moment. Anyway, that's just my
and that's something we have changed a lot over the past 10 years or so. And one of the things we're trying to do is, if an inspector goes into an establishment and they do an inspection and say they find a dirty foot spa and they find, maybe the towel drawer wasn't open, and maybe, a couple of violations that aren't necessarily connected to consumer harm. What we will do is we'll send the inspector back out on a compliance directed, and we'll ask them, just check the foot spas. Because in any salon, as especially our industry members know, anytime we go into a salon, if we want, we can find a violation. Because we have a violation for everything. So we can find violations no matter what. It's inevitable. There's going to be a piece of hair somewhere or some nail dust somewhere. So what we're trying to do is not nickel and dime salons. When we just need to make sure that one item, which was a foot spa, for example, which is a serious risk to consumer harms, has been corrected. It's corrected. Yes, you're good to go. We're out. So we do have a process like that as well.
I'm a little bit concerned, though, if we plan too far ahead of time, because I'm thinking about the consumer, and the point of those unexpected appearances is that if there's like an unlicensed individual practicing, a warning would give them the chance to say, okay, just don't come to work that day. We'll miss some of those natural points where we have an opportunity to educate. So I do like them to kind of go without notice. But to Christy's point, there's not an all or nothing approach, right? They are seeing small things and then the collaboration starts from there. But if we don't see it, we don't even know at what point we need to be engaging them. So just something to think about.
No, that's a good point, that they would not do something just for the day, just because they know that that's the day we're coming. Yeah, good point.
If any other comments from the board, if not, we can open it up to public comment. There's no motion for this one. We just want to open up for public.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And it does look like we have a request for comment from Wendy Cochran. Wendy, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Good morning, committee. Having a pre-planned inspection, I feel, in aesthetics particularly would be not very good. Because of the fact that it's not just about sanitation and making sure your Q-tips are labeled correctly. It's about me having the opportunity to move out the body sculpting radio frequency machines and take out my tint and take out my microneedling, because now I have plenty of notice that I know that I can take all those things that I know are illegal and out of scope, and I can roll them out of the room, take them out, put them in my trunk, whatever I need to do, because we know this is already happening. So I feel, to Danielle's comment, that, yeah, we do need to have a little bit of an element of surprise, because it's not just about having, not swept up the hair on the floor. In my group of 8,400 estheticians right now, we are getting a lot of calls from the board or inspectors, and they're apprehensive to know if this is a real state employee that is trying to schedule an appointment, or if this is somebody just trying to being imposter or competition trying to haze them. We would love to see a little transparency on getting these calls, and maybe make a public announcement on the website that says that an inspector or the board of Barbering and Cosmetology will be leaving you a message, potentially to discuss a time to come and see you because we missed you or whatever is going on there. They're kind of, we get these random phone calls, and we're not trusting that they're actually state people, and that they're, just people kind of screwing around with us.
15 seconds.
So thank you very much.
right. This is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, you can close it. Okay, so as there's no more discussion for this one, let's go on to our next agenda item. And this is the discussion and possible recommendation regarding a plan to address unlicensed individuals working outside of the establishment. So I first want to turn it over to our executive officer for a report.
Okay, I don't think there will be a recommendation on this, just so you know, because we're just going to explain something that we're doing. It's not something that actually we need to refer to the board, I don't believe. So this is talking about the increase that we've seen since COVID about people working out of their homes or people advertising on Instagram, and what we are doing to try to address this this issue. So in your background information, we've provided some a memo on what we're doing internally. First of all, we've provided some information, and you can see how much it's grown. This is the number of complaints. The graph in your memo talks about the number of complaints that we've received based on people either working out of their home or people working who are advertising off Instagram. So, in 2022, we had 378 complaints compared to 2018, we only had 75. So it's obviously a huge problem. It's something that we've been talking about internally for quite some time. In doing so, we have reached out to the department's Division of Investigation. That is the group of sworn peace officers that do the investigation aspect for all of the Department of Consumer Affairs. And they are sworn peace officers, investigators, who can obviously do a lot more work than what our inspectors can do. So we reached out with them, and our enforcement team recently met with the Division of Investigation to kind of give them an idea of what we're seeing and how they could help us. They gave us some great pointers on additional information that we could do from the desk analyst standpoint, because one of the biggest issues is identifying these people. A lot of this Instagram advertising is very hard to identify who these individuals are and if they actually have a license. Many don't. Many are doing services out there that not only are they not performing services in an establishment, but they're not even licensed themselves, but a lot are licensed. So we tend to have a little more success with the licensed people, because if we can locate them and then we can locate their actual license and we can take discipline against that actual license. So it's an ongoing process of what is going on. It's something fairly new to the board of how we are looking at attacking this issue. And we will be continuing to work with the Division of Investigation. They have, as I mentioned, they have access to a lot more different information that we have since they're law enforcement. So they'll be helping us trying to identify these people. And once we have them identified, if they're licensed, then we have a connection and we have something that we can take discipline against. It's a priority in our enforcement unit. It's something that we're looking at every day. I get a report on a regular basis of how many complaints we've received in this situation. And our inspectors are also starting to return to home salons and looking at that. Because obviously, for any public that happens to be listening, you can have a salon in your home. You just have to do it the right way. It still has to have a license, and there are some additional requirements that you have to have. So we want to make sure that people are doing things the right way. So with the help of the Division of Investigation, we have a good start on addressing this problem. And hopefully you'll see some successes coming to this committee in the future.
Christy,
any questions?
Thank you so much for touching on that point. We've definitely heard that from the board and public comment before. This is an issue. So I really appreciate the time you're taking to look into this. And it's very relevant. It's like, you're keeping up with the times, because these are the things we're dealing with now that we might not have before. So I appreciate you you doing this. I have a question about the complaints. Can you tell me more about like who they come from? How do we get those, and what are the complaints regarding?
They're all, it's across the board, whether it's a person who had that service done and is unhappy with the service, they will complain. It's often people who, to be honest, it's not necessarily competitors, but maybe someone that used to work with the person in a salon and now they are seeing this person do this, so they're filing a complaint. Neighbors, you know, a lot of cities do not allow this type of business to be done in homes. So that's another part of our process is we're working with every city and county. When we find these issues, we're reporting it to them as well. You know, it's hit and miss which cities take a strong action against it, but there are definitely some who definitely take a strong stance on these types of committees. One of the biggest issues is the disposal of chemicals. So if somebody's performing services in their home, those cities and counties code enforcements will go out because they believe they're disposing of different types of chemicals down their drains, which is a violation of those codes. So the complaints are coming from all over.
That's really helpful to know. And I'm sorry to hear that people got services from an unlicensed person and didn't really have a recourse through the board, at least, because that person's not licensed. Yeah, that's hard to hear.
It's interesting. We have had some consumer harm that has happened in these types of situations that we're looking into. And for some of you in the industry probably know this, but the people who complain the most are people who just paid money and got a bad service. So not necessarily harmed, but lashes that weren't straight or hair that wasn't, cut like the picture that they showed. Those are the people that are super upset and they will complain to us. So, the industry, I don't think gets that it's not just consumer harm that draws attention of your clients. It's just a general bad service that might not harm a person, but it's very upsetting for someone to pay $300-400 for a set of lashes and they either fell off or they're crooked or they got glue in their eye. So that's the kind of stuff that's happening.
Wow. Okay. This is good. Something to think on. I want to think on this a bit, but I do want to keep this on our radar. Anyone else on the board? Anyone have comments before we open it to public comment?
Well, I have
got. Oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
Jacob, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Kelly. Just because it came from the other committee, on passing rates, and I'm wondering if there's a connection for unlicensed operations through people's houses because they're just like, wow, these passing rates are low, or I've heard rumor that the test is hard, and people are opting to take that chance and just start practicing because they don't want to bother with the test. And so I'm just thinking out loud, like there's probably some sort of correlation or connection here. And if we thought of ways to sort of promote, like, no, like the test is actually it's a great test. It's consumer protection. Like it's not hard. It's at the level it should be, right? But it's not like you're not going to not pass. Like we want you to try, finding ways to sort of promote the positivity, and that might lower the unlicensed practicing. So I'm just like kind of marinating on what kind of connection we can make and what kind of the publicity or, sorry, like I said, I have a cold. My brain is not working, but like spokes people who are like advocating positively for, the legal and ethical thing to do.
And I thought you were going to go in the direction of folks who aren't passing are still practicing.
Oh, well, yeah, that too, right? They're not passing, are still practicing, right? And that's dangerous. So it's how do we say, listen, you can pass, right? Let's do this the right way, X, Y, and Z.
I wonder how many folks
That's a great point. I really think it's a great point, Jacob, especially because I found out that the board from the Barber Cosmos Instagram page that they needed new members. So the communication tool there is powerful. And I like your idea of appealing to these practitioners that are not within our licensed population now, that like, hey, would you like to obtain a license and be a verified, using that word kind of loosely, but a verified practitioner? I like that idea because it's very challenging to think about getting our arms around the Instagram world. I love that it's specifically broken out in these reports because it's a huge problem, and people making their own products and using them or trying to sell them, buying a machine that doesn't have much oversight or credibility and selling their services online. I think this is a really interesting idea, actually, to try to appeal to the Instagram population by trying to get our more people enrolled in the programs and taking that exam. So good idea. And I love that we're drilling down, and thank you, Christy, for all of the work that the staff is doing, because it's a huge risk, and it's why I wanted to get involved was what I see online. I feel like it just waters down our industry. It takes away from the professionalism, and it's confusing to the consumer. They just don't know. Should I do this? Should I go into a place? So I love all of this, and I'm totally on board with whatever you guys need help with and want to do.
Also, too, what I was thinking is this idea of how the consumer sees the business, right? And so, like before, because I'm, here as a member of the public, right? And honestly, before I got on the board, I was like, how hard is it to be, to do hair? Like, I mean, I'm biased. I don't have any, right? I shave my own head. So I'm like, how hard is it to take care of your hair? How hard can it really be to do X, Y, and Z? Like, I was very unaware that it's hard. Like, this is a very hard profession, and there's a lot of things that you have to learn. And if you don't do it correctly, there's danger, like I was that person that was like, are all, complaints because my hair is not straight or it doesn't look good. But really, like, you could burn someone's head off. Like, you can damage their face. You can cut something and have a staph infection. Mm-hmm. And so thinking of like how we get to the consumer, that if you don't do your due diligence as well about who's cutting your hair, who's, providing electrolysis, that can be dangerous. And so if consumers stop using unlicensed practitioners because they know the danger, then it will dissuade unlicensed practitioners from practicing, right? They'll be like, well, I guess I need to have my license because it's coming to me.
Right. So that's been on my mind about the consumer's awareness. And I think cosmetology's probably hit the hardest because those materials are easily accessible. You can buy makeup anywhere, and the Instagram gig economy has just blown up. And so I think that's going to be the profession that's hit the hardest, just because the easy accessibility to what they need to do their job, right? You could get it, anyone can do their own makeup. And so, but I'm thinking about the other professions too within this spectrum. But I do feel like this is probably going to be around to stay, and it's probably something we should start thinking on, because it's just blown up so much, and Instagram's so popular, and people love to do makeup, and people are trying to save money these days. So it's just like this perfect storm. But this is a really good time to get ahead of consumers and just say, ask your person if they have a license, right? Ask your person, or even from the other side, you have no recourse from us if your services are unsatisfactory, if they're not licensed. And so that might also help people understand, like, what would happen if you didn't go with a licensed person? We wouldn't be able to, enforce that person. We have no jurisdiction over that person. So just maybe also pushing that. And just like your Safe Sandal Season, campaign, like, we've done that before. So I like that we're changing with the times and maybe even changing our outreach a bit to consumers just to get ahead of this. Yeah.
Yeah, a campaign sounds like what we should put in the works. An Instagram campaign that is specifically that those that are practicing without a license will see and say, oh, They're, oh, the board is meeting me where I'm at. And as opposed, as far as hitting the consumers with the truth and giving them an option and giving them education. And then, like you said, in turn, Jacob, that then it would encourage the practitioners to become licensed.
Yep.
I think an Instagram campaign on this particular issue sounds just what we need.
Great ideas.
Yeah, because like no one wants to be canceled. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right?
It's true, but it's like if you're doing a campaign and, like my husband's always watching the TikTok, right? And like he's always seeing people who are talking about like bad things and things that happen. Like if this picks up and people are TikToking, listen, like this happened to me and like you need to really check on this and X, Y, and Z. Like no one wants to be that person that's doing the bad thing on social media, right? So there's a lot of power in consumer voice. And so if you get the consumers because we could sit all day and talk about why it's wrong, but we're like, the parental figure, right? But like, if you get the consumers to talk about like, I would never go to someone unlicensed. That's just like, what do the kids call it? Sus, like that's sus. Like, I don't want that, right? Like, going to someone's house and there's nothing posted there. That's sus. Like,
do consumers even know that's illegal? I don't even think many do. I think they just appreciate, oh, this service is available. You're out there. I saw your Instagram pictures. Portfolio looks great. It's the look I'm going for. And they just reach out. I don't think it even crosses their mind sometimes that there's laws and regulations attached to this profession. Where our newer generation, I'm guessing there's a specific generation that's using Instagram. And that newer generation might not be familiar with that there's even laws. Can we open up to public comment now? Anyone else? Great comments, everyone. Thanks.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you can either use the Q&A feature at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or you use the raise hand function. And it looks like we have a couple requests for public comment, so I'm going to go in the order that they were received. First, I have Fred Jones. Fred, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
This is a very big issue to us as an association. Professionalism is in the very name of our federation. Our mission is a solitary one, to raise the professionalism of beauty and barbering. I will say, I think the obvious causal connection here to the spike that started in 2020 were the COVID lockdowns. And there were a lot of folks that decided to work underground. And when they weren't punished, the word spread. So people have become comfortable with the idea of working from home, and some of their clients have become comfortable with it. And that's very unfortunate, because one of the biggest issues we fight as a group is unlicensed underground activity. That's what threatens our professionalism more than anything. So beyond the reactionary efforts that I applaud that are included in Christie's report this morning with DOI and others, I would strongly recommend prophylactic efforts, because again, the word spreads quickly like a virus in this industry. And if the word goes out from the state board that they are checking social media posts and will be enforcing unlicensed activity against licensees who decide to advertise blatantly their underground activities, that will go a long way to suppressing this. So we would encourage the state board to prophylactically go out there and inform licensees that they will be punished for working illegally. And there's no excuse. You have the personal service permit now.
15 seconds.
So they can work legally, and you can get your home license. There's no excuse for doing this. So we hope to work with you in stopping this growing movement.
Thanks, Fred.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual who has requested public comment is Sydney. And Sydney, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello, good morning. You all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I hear the conversation, and I do believe that we have to talk to the consumer. So that would be a great idea to do a campaign for the consumer, because as the board, I believe that we have to protect our industry and protect our licensees. So we have to fight the unlicensed activity. And I think, yes, it is correct for the board to do that, to support the people that have licenses, the students that are currently in beauty school that are doing the work to get a license. We have to help them. And again, to increase and retain the professionalism of our industry. We're losing it because they're like panelists has already said, you know, the supplies and the equipment that we use, they're sold everywhere. So we need the board to help us to suppress that activity, to support the licensees. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual who has requested public comment is Wendy Cochran. And Wendy, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Good morning. So while the PSP is in place, it doesn't allow a lot of these things to happen from the aesthetic standpoint. We can't do lashes. We can't do any sort of waxing or hair removal services other than using a pair of tweezers to do a leg wax, I suppose. So that would be a problem, kind of leaning on that PSP to solve this problem. Also acknowledged our market is very saturated. Sorry for my security in the background here. The consumer messaging would be absolutely critical. And I think that that's something that the board can inspire the licensees to be more active in achieving, is to make sure that the licensees agree that their license is very important to us and the professionalism is very important to us. We have a lot of people that say, keep your eyes on your own business and don't disrupt somebody just trying to get their money and be able to support themselves and all that other stuff. So we really do need to start encouraging the licensed population to spread the word and to protect our licenses, because as Jacob pointed out, anybody can shave their head. And if anybody's been in any of these Senate meetings over the history of the PSP and SB 803, they all know that the lawmakers don't think that our licenses are all that important for the most part, because their wife can color her own hair. And they don't understand how difficult it is for us to do a proper chemical peel and to do a safe service for people in a very clean and sanitary environment with insurance in place. So I feel that if the board
15 seconds.
If the board can make a push to encourage the licensees to do the right thing and make our license important again, that is going to be us to get that word out to the consumers is going to be absolutely critical to this exercise.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual who has requested public comment is Jamie Schrebeck. And Jamie, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak at a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. This will sound like a broken record, but the DCA already has a check the license, and we're directed as consumers or other licensees to go to the Breeze system to look people up, but without a requirement for licensees to advertise and do business with their licensed numbers and their licensed names, this is futile. So there is something the board could do, which is to support legislation that licensees of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology advertise and do business with their licensed names and numbers. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears that was our last request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, we can close it. Okay, I appreciate everyone's comments and investment in this. There's no need for a motion for this one, so we're going to go on to the next agenda item, public comment on items not on the agenda. So we will open up for public comment on this.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, that's fine. Okay, thank you. And do any committee members have suggestions for future committee meetings? Christy, I know that we had taken from our last meeting, took the legislative language to the board, and the board did approve it. So maybe on the next one, just what that looks like now, what steps come from there.
Well, you're going to hear about that at the board meeting.
Okay. The what?
But yeah, we'll look at the timing for where we put things on that. And then I would also, we'll keep this past item on the agenda as well so that we can continue to update the committee.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, and we'll keep this one too. Yeah, with the one we just talked about.
The Instagram campaign.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that would be my only thing, but I think that one's going to keep rolling forward on our agenda. Okay, great.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, well, I appreciate everyone's investment today, and we can move to adjourn our meeting.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
We'll now just need a couple minutes to move to our next panel for our final committee of the day, which is our Legislation and Budget Committee. Thanks, everyone.